Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today on which games that College Game Day is going to be coming to this upcoming season for the 2020 season, which campuses and stuff. This is the last video of a series I'm doing predicting which games are going to get primetime spots by television networks and also the College Game Day games here. Before I continue, hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. I'm really trying to grow this channel. We'll go right around the corner, literally right around the corner, a week from Monday, which is tomorrow. We're going to be coming out with their college football predictions, team by team. So stay tuned for that. You want to hit that subscribe button. You want to hit the thumbs up button as well because it helps this video get views, and also hit the notifications bell because you want to see those videos. You will not regret it. So, last part of the series here, which games are going to be your College Game Day games. For you guys that don't know what College Game Day is, it's basically a 3-hour show by ESPN. It's powered by the Home Depot. It's Reese Davis, who is basically the host of it, and then it's 3 analysts. Desmond Howard, who's on the far left, and then on the far right, Kurt Kirkstreet. They call him the voice of college football. That's kind of his little cachet right there. And then, of course, Lee Corso. He's got the headgear picks at the end when they do their picks. When they pick the game day, the game of the week, game day game, he has the headgear pick. So, for example, I forget who he picked here, but Clemson versus Texas A&M. If he thought Clemson was going to win, he would put on a tiger in his head. If he thought A&M was going to win, I think A&M is kind of just like a hat and some guns, so or pistols rather. So he would have done that. This was from 2018 when they went to College Station, and basically number 2 Clemson versus Texas A&M was the College Game Day game of the week. So that's basically they go to an on-site. Now, granted, I do know because of the pandemic with COVID-19 and all of that, they might not be able to do that in some areas, or they may just have to resort into studio shows the full 12 weeks. The way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to act like the pandemic is not a thing, and I'm just going to predict the games that I think they'll go to if there was not a pandemic. Now, granted, they probably will still be going to these sites, but I am willing to act like they're not. There is no pandemic, and that they will be able to go to these sites 100% capacity, even though I know there will not be. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And with week 1 here, I think they go to Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Jerry's World, for USC versus Alabama. If you watch my ABC, which games are going to be the ABC night game, this is the ABC night game. And usually when it's close, they do go with the ABC night game, whichever game is that, if it's close. And as I said in that video, I think this game is only going to be your bit of a tongue twister. I think this game is your only top 25 game on that Saturday. Now, granted, I do think there's a top 25 game on Friday as well, but I think this game is your only top 25 game on Saturday. I think this is your biggest game in week 1, at least on Saturday, and they'll go to this game. Week 2, they go to the first campus, Oregon. Now, granted, I know they came out and said in Oregon that they can't have mass crowds, so maybe they won't do this. Another option would be Tennessee, Oklahoma. And I always actually pulled the trigger on that. But this game is just going to be too good to pass up. It is the ABC night game, in my opinion, as well. It's just going to be too good. I think it is a top 10 matchup at the end of the day. And I just personally think that it's going to be a great game either way. And I do think this is your College Game Day game. Week 3. Georgia versus Alabama. I think this is the matchup of the year in the SEC. This could be an SEC championship preview right here. The game is in Alabama. And you can always say, well, they went to Alabama already. The rule with game day is that they don't repeat sites. So that means they can go to Tuscaloosa since they did the Alabama game already in Arlington, out in Dallas at the Notre site. But I think this could be a top 5 matchup, honestly. It's going to be a really big matchup, probably top 3 matchup of the year going into the season, marquee matchup. And I personally think this game will be your game day game here for week 3. Week 4, Florida versus Tennessee. This one might be a bit of a surprise. It's kind of a hard week to pick two. There's several games. I know Arizona State, USC's one as well that I highly consider. But I went with Florida, Tennessee, because Tennessee maybe have a loss to Oklahoma going into this game. Yes, but at the same time, Tennessee I think is a top 25 team this year, and this could be a possible big time upset right here. I think there's gonna be a lot of hype around this game. Florida, a lot of people think this is the year that Florida takes that next step and goes to the SEC championship game. And there's a lot of hype around Florida. Tennessee, a lot of hype around them after how they finished the season last year. I really feel like this could really be a possible upset right here. And I think it might be your biggest game of week 4, and that's why I think it's your college game day game of the week. Week 5, Wisconsin versus Notre Dame. This game is at Lambeau Field, so it's up in Green Bay. Even though I think Notre Dame's the home team, which means the game's on NBC. This is the biggest game. There's other games I thought of, maybe like on campus experience possibly, but it's just this game is too good to pass up. I think this is easily probably a top 15 matchup, honestly. And I think this game is going to be a good game either way. I think it's going to be a very physical game, something you don't see a lot or as much in college football. And I do think it's probably one of the top 10 marquee matchups going into the season, Wisconsin versus Notre Dame. Week 6, Texas versus Oklahoma. Now, this is a very big week for college football. There's a bunch of big games. But I went with this one because I think this game will decide, or maybe not decide, but I think it's your biggest game in the Big 12 this season. And I do think that, and it's also in Dallas. You're going to see later that have Oklahoma again. But the game's in Dallas. It's a neutral site. And I personally think it's going to be a very big game. I think it's going to be a really good game as well. This is a game that I am looking forward to seeing because I think this is a big year for Todd Herman. More on him in a future video, but I do think this is a big game, especially for Texas. Should be a top 25 matchup. Now, granted, Texas I do think has a tough schedule, so maybe Texas is not maybe as highly ranked as people might think going into this one, but in this matchup, anything can happen. Usually the underdog wins this matchup. It's always a great game, usually, in recent memory, so I really think this is going to be your Week 6 matchup for College Game Day. Week 7, I went with the FCS here, South Dakota State versus North Dakota State. They seem to like going to Fargo to North Dakota State. The Bison. They did this matchup last year when it was in South Dakota State, when it was North Dakota State versus South Dakota State, which I found interesting. When they did that last year, I watched the whole episode on that. But there's not really a game per se that they could really do. It's not really a big game. You can maybe say Texas A&M versus Auburn, maybe, but that's probably your biggest matchup. But overall, I really feel like this is probably your biggest matchup. As they say, it's the biggest game for College Game Day. They go to the biggest game, and I do think out of FBS and FCS, this is the biggest game. North Dakota State is an absolute powerhouse, and South Dakota State is pretty damn good as well. And I'll make a prediction right now. I think both of these teams will move up to either the MAC conference or the Mountain West. when conference realignment happens around 2025. So, and I'm going to be doing a video on that possibly as well coming up soon. But I really feel like both of these both of these are really good for their classification, and I think it's going to be a good matchup. I know North Dakota State's kind of in the series, but I really think it's going to be a good matchup. It always seems to be a very good ball game, and I think this is your Week 7 matchup for College Game Day. Week 8 is a very big matchup. Yeah, this is a very big matchup, but it's also a really big week for college football. I think you have two really big matchups this week. Ohio State and Penn State, obviously, and then Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. I do think Oklahoma State is a top 15 team. I'm really high on them. But I went with Ohio State, Penn State because I think this is the better matchup, A, and B. This game will be for the Big Ten East. I think Penn State is really the only team outside of Oregon on Ohio State's schedule that really has a shot against them, a realistic shot. And it always seems like they have fun at State College or Happy Valley. That's what they call it, Happy Valley, and it seems like an electric atmosphere. I know people that have been to College Game Day at Happy Valley, and they say great things about it. But overall, I do think this is going to be a huge matchup right here, and I can't wait for it. This is also a top 10 matchup going into the season as well that I am looking forward to. Week 9. Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville. Last year, I want to say they did not do this game. I think they do it this year. As I said, a lot of people are really high on Florida this year. They really think they could take that next step, beat Georgia, and go to the SEC championship game. I'm not going to tell you if I think they could do that or not. I'm going to save that for my predictions, but this is a huge matchup. I think both teams will be in the top 10 going into this one. Georgia's a team they've really been dominating the East the past 3 or 4 years. But a lot of people are really high on this Florida team. And I do think people, and I'll come out and say this, I do think there's reasons to be high on that Florida team. But overall, I just think it's going to be a great matchup. And I can't wait for it. This is a matchup that I know people have circled to watch. Week 10, and by the way, this game's on Halloween as well. Week 10, Alabama versus LSU. Now, there's two big matchups right here. One of them being Clemson versus Notre Dame in South Bend. But I went for Alabama LSU because I know they want to go to the defending champs, the LSU Tigers. I know they want to probably do a College Game Day there, and I think this is the opportunity to do it. They could go week 2 and go ahead and do Texas LSU. But as I said, I do think that Ohio State Oregon is just too big of a matchup to pass up. But I think they could go. I think they do it here, Alabama versus LSU. I think this is going to be a great game. I do think Alabama, I'll come out and say it, I do think Alabama is going to be higher ranked than LSU coming into this game, primarily because I think LSU's schedule is tougher more towards the beginning than the back end. But overall, I think it's going to be a great matchup. It's in Baton Rouge, Death Valley. It's going to be a big-time matchup. And I personally think whoever wins this is going to be narrowly coming out with the win. Very big matchup right here. Week 11. I went with Kansas State versus Oklahoma. They have not been to Norman yet, so they could go here. There's not really so much of a big matchup here. They could go to UCF, but more on that in a second. So I went with Kansas State, Oklahoma. Kansas State, listen, they beat them last year. That was Oklahoma's one lone loss outside of the playoffs against LSU. So in this matchup, anything can happen in this matchup. Kansas State, they were a lot better than what I thought they were going to be last year. I think they're going to be pretty damn good again this year. And a lot of things can happen in this matchup. I mean, as I think there was a stretch recently where the road team has actually won in this matchup. I mean, this set is a very underrated rivalry right here, and I personally think that this is your college game day game of the week for Week 11. It's not really a big matchup, but I do think this is the game because of the fact that this was the one team that Oklahoma did lose to last year. Week 12. Cincinnati versus UCF. I think they go group of 5 here. People think UCF is going to bounce back after last year. Cincinnati, I think, might be the team to beat out of all the group of 5 teams for that New Year's Six Bowl, even though don't count out Boise State and Memphis and UCF, of course. This is going to be, I think, a huge matchup in the American Athletic Conference. And I personally think this game could be, whoever wins this game could go ahead and go to a New Year's Six Bowl, depending on what's happening in the American Athletic West Conference. Remember, Memphis is in that conference. I think Houston's going to bounce back some. SMU's in that conference as well. I'm also going to throw Tulane in that because Tulane's actually been making bowl games lately. So we'll see what happens, but I do think this is your Week 12 matchup right here. As I said, it's not really so much of a big, not so much like as a big matchups really for Week 12. The back end of college football this year actually seems to be kind of weak, honestly. But this is a big group of 5 matchup. I think they go to Orlando. And then Week 13, I think is basically a pick 'em for Week 13. They could go to a number of places. But I went with an interesting matchup, maybe of a bit of a interesting prediction here to be a bit unique, because I know some people come out with these videos. I went with Kentucky versus Louisville. Both of these teams, maybe not so much Louisville when they in the back end years of Bobby Petrino, but I know for a fact Kentucky, they're making bowl games consistently. Louisville seems like a team that some people think is actually the second best team in the ACC. It's just that Clemson's in their way. Kentucky, and they're definitely probably one of the better teams in the SEC. There's a group of teams in the SEC, the Mississippi schools, Kentucky. I'll throw in there South Carolina and Missouri, and maybe I'm not going to throw Tennessee in there, but that group of schools, I think that group of schools, there's going to be probably the majority of them make a bowl game. I think maybe 1 or 2 of them don't. Kentucky's on the top of the list of schools in that list that will be making a bowl game. I think Mark Stoops runs an excellent program at Kentucky, and I think they'll probably due for another 7-8 win season. Same thing with Louisville. I'm not completely buying into the hype, thinking that they're the second best team in the ACC, because I think there's a team in the Coastal who is not on this list, but could have been on this list. That's the second best team in the ACC, North Carolina. But just maybe they go here. I know the ABC night game I have is South Carolina versus Clemson. Maybe they go there. I've seen some maybe going to Columbus for Michigan versus Ohio State as well. Here's my issue with that. Who's going to take Michigan seriously in that matchup? I mean, just think about it. But I think this is the matchup they do, because I think I just think this might be the most even matchup. But anyways, those are my predictions for places that the College Game Day crew is going to go for the College Game Day game. Comment down below. I want to hear your predictions. I always like hearing everybody's predictions on this because it's unique to me. Thanks for watching. I'm planning 3 videos this week. I'm going to be doing over-unders on all NFL teams for wins, and also all college football teams for wins, and also college football coaches on the hot seat video will be coming out this week as well. So stay tuned for that. Remember, hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. Thanks for watching. McD the Beast signing off.